They saw an old black woman in a cardigan and thought she didn't belong, so they kicked her out. What they didn't know was that she'd be back by noon, owning the whole damn store. This is the story of Henrietta Mayfield and how she turned humiliation into a legacy no one could ignore. "Ma'am, the donation bin is 2 blocks down." That's what they said to her. No greeting. No welcome. No. "May I help you, ma'am?" Just an assumption wrapped in condescension, tossed like garbage at the feet of a woman wearing orthopedic sandals, a straw hat, and a thrift store tote bag that had been mended with love, not logos. Henrietta Mayfield, 76 years old and 76 years done with being polite to the rude, took one slow step into Lucent Luxe, New York's most elite beauty boutique, before the staff began to shift uncomfortably, like her presence was a stain on the marble. Behind the counter, a young woman with contour sharper than her resume leaned forward, eyes wide with disgust, dressed up as concern. "Sorry, miss, we don't offer free samples here. Our products aren't exactly budget-friendly." Henrietta looked around the store. Crystal chandeliers, glass cases glowing with serums priced higher than rent. And behind all that shine, people, pale, pinched, performatively posh. She took in like someone inspecting a kitchen before deciding whether to eat. "I'm not here for samples," she said calmly. "I'm here for the Platinum Renewal Elixir, the one you keep refrigerated behind counter." Silence. The kind of silence that usually comes right before someone does something stupid. Enta Mala von Kemp, general manager, defender of the rich, slayer of intruders. She marched out from the back like she'd smelled something foul and followed it to its source. "I'm sorry, but we can't allow loitering," she said, clutching her clipboard like it was a badge of authority. "We have high-profile clientele. We can't have disruptions." Henrietta tilted her head. "You see a disruption, darling? Or just a woman you didn't expect to see near $500 eye cream?" That's when the security team showed up. 2 men. Both were built like linebackers and dressed like bouncers at a rooftop bar. One reached for Henrietta's elbow. The other blocked the exit, just in case she tried to flee with the aura mist. She didn't fight, didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice, because Henrietta knew something they didn't. As they escorted her to the door, firmly, publicly, and without shame, she reached in her pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a phone. Not a new phone, not gold-plated, just old, functional, and dangerous in the right hands. She tapped one number, just one. "Toby," she said, voice low but lethal. "They put hands on me, baby, at a store called Lucent Luxe. Said I didn't belong." There was a pause, then a smirk. "And Toby? Let's make sure tomorrow morning they don't either." Across the glass, the staff chuckled. What they didn't know was that Toby was short for Tobias Monroe. And Tobias Monroe was short for billionaire tech mogul who could buy their building, block, and board of directors before brunch. That was the moment Lucent Luxe stopped being a store and became a headline in the making. 21 minutes after Henrietta made that call, Madison Avenue paused. Not figuratively, not poetically, actually paused. Traffic slowed. The conversation stopped. Even the doorman across the street at Chanel stopped polishing his brass handle and stared. A matte black Rolls-Royce Cullinan, the kind of car that doesn't park, it arrives, glided to a stop in front of Lucent Luxe. Then another, and another. 3 in total. The doors didn't open right away. That's not how power works. Power doesn't rush. Inside the boutique, Marla adjusted her pearls and peeked through the tinted glass. "Must be some celebrity thing," she said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her diaphragm. "Let's stay calm, ladies. This is our clientele." Chloe, the salesgirl, whispered, "Do we have any scheduled VIP appointments?" "No," Marla replied. "But don't swarm them. Rich people hate desperation," which was ironic, considering she'd been desperate to remove Henrietta just 20 minutes earlier. The first door opened. Out stepped a driver in a navy 3-piece suit, clean-shaven. Posture so perfect, it looked like it came with a security clearance. He opened the rear passenger door like it was the gate to Versailles. And from that door came Henrietta Mayfield, not in orthopedic sandals, not in a cardigan. Now, she wore a full-length cream coat with subtle embroidery that caught the morning light like moonlight trapped in fabric. Her cane, yes, cane, was hand-carved mahogany. And her scarf? Hermes. Real. Vintage. And tied like she'd been doing it before the store existed. She didn't look like she was returning to a store. She looked like she was about to repossess it. From a second Rolls-Royce stepped out a man in a slate-gray Tom Ford suit. Tall, smooth, with salt and pepper hair cut tight, like a Navy SEAL who reads Forbes. No introduction is needed. Tobias Monroe. Net worth, $12.7 billion. Known for buying out 3 Fortune 500 companies over lunch and not bothering to chew. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. The third car? Full of lawyers. Real ones. In matching Navy trench coats, briefcases, and energy that said, "We don't do refunds. We do acquisitions." Inside, Chloe dropped her lip gloss. Bethany, the junior associate, whispered, "Oh my God. I think she's the woman we just kicked out." Marla froze mid-step. Her smile shriveled before it even reached her teeth. No, that woman had Crocs. Henrietta walked toward the entrance slowly. Not because she was old, but because she wanted everyone to see it. The gatekeeper returns to the gate with keys. As she reached the door, the automatic sensor hesitated. So did Marla. The doors opened. Henrietta stepped inside, glanced around once, and said calmly, "Now then, let's talk about who doesn't belong here." And just like that, Lucent Lux had their first staff-wide panic attack. There are moments in life that feel like earthquakes. This was one of them, and the tremors were just getting started. If you've never seen a luxury boutique turn into a hostage negotiation without the hostages realizing it, welcome to Lucent Lux at 10:03 a.m. Henrietta didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her cane clicked once on the marble floor, and the entire store flinched. That's the thing about true power. It doesn't arrive yelling. It strolls in, unbothered, while everyone else starts questioning their salary, their decisions, and their health insurance. Behind her, Tobias Monroe stepped in. 6'2", calm as a closed vault. He didn't glance at the products, or the decor, or the pitifully shaking manager now, attempting a smile that belonged in a museum for bad ideas. His eyes were fixed on his mother. She had stopped in the middle of the store, directly under the chandelier, right where they'd humiliated her an hour ago. Marla stumbled forward, hands clasped like she was auditioning for a role she already got fired from. "Mrs. Mayfield, we had no idea who you were. If someone had just explained." Henrietta raised her hand. Not like a queen, like a teacher, a tired one, who's seen enough nonsense to fill 3 lifetimes. "Oh, honey," she said, "you don't treat people better because of who they are. You treat people better because of who you are. But I suppose that concept got lost somewhere between your pearls and your prejudice." Chloe looked like she might cry. Bethany suddenly found the floor very interesting. And then Tobias spoke. "We'll be brief," he said, removing a pair of gloves with the kind of control usually reserved for chess champions and surgeons. "As of this morning, Monroe Equity has acquired a 52% stake in Lucent Lux's parent company." Pause. No one breathed. "And effective immediately," he continued, "we are conducting a leadership audit." Marla blinked. "Ewa." Henrietta cut her off, turning slowly to face the staff. "An audit," she said, voice soft and sharp, "is what happens when your attitude finally hits your accounts receivable." Tobias nodded to his team. The lawyers fanned out like assassins in silk. One headed straight to the back office. Another started quietly handing out sealed envelopes to each employee. "Oh my God," whispered Chloe. "Am I being sued?" "No, dear," Henrietta said, "but you will be asked a few questions about your no samples for people who look like me policy." Across the store, the energy shifted from confusion to dread. Customers began to back out slowly. Some tried pretending they weren't watching. Others were already texting. The boutique wasn't just a store anymore. It was a stage, and the reviews were rolling in. Tobias turned to Marla one last time. "You looked my mother up and down and decided she wasn't worth your time. Now I'm deciding if you're worth mine." And right then, for the first time in her career, Marla Von Kemp had nothing to say. Because when you build your throne on exclusion, you'd better pray the crown never walks through the door. And today it just did, with orthopedic sandals and the receipts to burn you alive. There's a special kind of silence that falls over a store when every employee realizes they might have smiled at the wrong person and sneered at the right one. Lucent Lux was drowning in it. Henrietta sat in a cream leather chair they used to reserve for celebrity facials. Now, it served a higher purpose: judgment. A small espresso sat untouched beside her. She didn't need caffeine, just patience. Tobias stood near the front display, reading through reports his team had just printed from the store's back office. His brow furrowed once, then again, then a slow exhale. Interesting, he said. In the past 6 months, 97% of your VIP appointments went to white women under 40. Meanwhile, complaint logs from black customers? Deleted. Everyone. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Marla, now seated across from him, tried to swallow air. Those numbers, that doesn't mean we intended. It means you're consistent, Henrietta said coolly. Racism with a regular schedule. The younger staff members shifted uncomfortably. Chloe looked like she might faint. Bethany gripped the edge of the product shelf like it could save her career. A moment later, the doors opened, and in walked Mrs. Jeanette Coleman, retired judge, age 81, wearing a black coat and a look that could dismiss a murder case in one glance. She nodded at Henrietta and Tobias, then turned to the staff. I was asked to witness the transition, she said, and ensure all terminations today are documented properly. Marla blinked. Terminations? Tobias looked up. We're not here to give a lecture, Marla. We're here to restructure. That means some people will go. You included. But she started. But nothing, Henrietta cut in. You humiliated an old woman in public. Now you're shocked we don't want you selling eye cream next to your dignity. A murmur rippled across the floor. Staff were realizing this wasn't just damage control. It was regime change. That's when the second wave hit. 2 men in dark suits rolled in with a digital projector and a laptop. Playback's ready, one said. On the screen, footage from the security cameras. Multiple angles. No cuts. No context needed. Henrietta walking in. Being ignored. Being surrounded. Being grabbed. No sound, but somehow it was louder than any apology. Chloe dropped her clipboard. Bethany covered her mouth. The other employees, ones who thought they'd just witnessed an incident, were now seeing themselves in it. Henrietta leaned in slightly. Funny how everything you do changes when you realize someone's watching. But baby, someone's always watching. And just like that, Lucent Lux's golden reputation cracked like cheap foundation on a hot day. Well, the lawyers stepped forward. Effective immediately, the following employees are suspended pending review. He began reading names. Each one was a nail in the coffin of what this story used to be. But the final name made Marla's face fall like the stock price of a scandal. And manager Marla Vaughn Kemp is hereby terminated for cause. No one clapped. No one gasped. It was worse. They agreed. Outside, a crowd had gathered. Phones raised. Whispers everywhere. A boutique once known for its exclusive glow now had a different kind of spotlight. And this time, the lighting wasn't flattering. By 10:47 a.m., Lucent Lux no longer smelled like luxury. It smelled like panic in designer perfume. Half the staff had vanished, some escorted out with a lawyer's hand on their back, others pretending they were on break and never coming back. The marble floors, once so intimidating, now echoed with the footsteps of people running out of excuses. In the corner, Henrietta calmly sipped her espresso. Still untouched. Still hot. That's how she liked it. Like her justice, slow brewed and served without sugar. She turned to Tobias, who stood with arms folded, scanning the crowd that remained. We're keeping her, she said, nodding toward Bethany. Bethany looked up from the register, eyes wide. Me? You at least try to speak up, Henrietta said. And you called me ma'am, not miss, like I was some stray dog begging for scraps. Bettini blinked fussed. I didn't know who you were, I swear. I just thought what they were doing was wrong. And that's the only reason you still have a job, Tobias added, handing her a sealed envelope. You're on probation, but you'll report directly to the new regional director. Bethany hesitated. Who's that? Henrietta smiled. Me, baby. And just like that, Bethany became the first employee in store history to survive 2 restructurings in one morning. The store doors were closed now, locked from the inside, blinds drawn halfway. Outside, news vans had arrived. The rumor mill was boiling. A Lucent Lux shut down on 5th Avenue in broad daylight. Some said it was a bomb threat. Others said Beyoncé had bought the building. But none of them got it right. Because the real explosion wasn't outside, it was coming from the conference room in the back where Tobias was now walking in with the board. Yes. The board of directors. Yes. In person. Yes. Called in less than an hour ago. You said this was an isolated incident, Tobias said flatly, projecting a slide showing demographic breakdowns by zip code. You said this was exaggerated. He clicked to the next slide. Video testimonials. Not just Henrietta's. Dozens. Black men ignored. Asian women followed. Latino families asked if they were lost. Trans women mocked. All caught on camera. All time-stamped. All archived. You sold the fantasy of beauty, Tobias said. But the only thing real in this store was the exclusion. One board member cleared her throat. We never approved these hiring practices. Henrietta, standing now at the end of the table, spoke before Tobias could. You didn't disapprove of them either. Another silence. The kind where shame walks in, sits down, and doesn't need an introduction. And somewhere in that moment, every person in that room realized this wasn't just a PR nightmare. This was an identity crisis with $1 billion price tag. One board member finally asked, voice shaky, "What do you intend to do?" Henrietta looked at Tobias. He looked at her. Then, I went back to them. We're going to remake the entire brand, Tobias said, from the packaging to the purpose. Henrietta added, and this time, everyone gets a mirror, not just the ones you think deserve to see themselves. Somewhere in the building, the lights flickered, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. By noon, the building had officially changed ownership. The paperwork was signed, the keys metaphorically handed over, and the future of Lucent Lux was now in the grip of a 76-year-old woman who still paid cash at farmers markets and had never downloaded an app in her life. Henrietta didn't need apps. She had experience and a memory long enough to stretch from the back of the bus to the front office of a global cosmetics empire. Let's clear the sales floor, she told one of the remaining assistants, waving her cane like a conductor commanding a new symphony. If we're going to rebuild, we're not doing it on top of rotten wood. Products were boxed, displays disassembled. By 12:35, the marble floor was bare. No more overpriced moisturizers in glass coffins. No more marketing posters featuring women who all looked like they lived inside the same Instagram filter. Leave that. Henrietta pointed at the oversized quote etched into the wall in gold cursive. Elegance is for the few. Tobias raised a brow. You want to keep that? Henrietta smiled thinly. No, I want them to erase it. And so they did. Chloe and 2 other surviving staff members climbed ladders and scraped the lettering down themselves, one swirl at a time. Under the watchful eye of the woman they had dismissed as a nuisance just hours before. Outside, the press had caught wind. Headlines were already appearing online. Black elderly woman ousted from store, returns as new owner by noon. Luxury retail learns expensive lesson in who not to mess with. Lucent Lux becomes Lucent Loss. Reporters began crowding the sidewalk. Flashbulbs popped. Questions flew. Mrs. Mayfield, how does it feel to take over the very store that kicked you out? Henrietta stepped through the doors flanked by Tobias and the new transition team. She paused for a moment, adjusted her scarf, and replied, well, sugar, it feels like karma remember my address. The crowd erupted. Meanwhile, in a forgotten HR office upstairs, Marla Von Kemp sat alone, waiting to be called for exit processing. She scrolled through her phone desperately, texting contacts who weren't replying, LinkedIn messages still unread. The kind of silence you only get when people start distancing themselves before the public does it for them. Downstairs, the transformation had already begun. Henrietta held a meeting with her design and marketing team. Yes, she had one now, recruited in under 2 hours. A black woman in her 50s, formerly head of DEI at a major fashion house. A trans man who'd been denied promotion 3 times at his last job by someone who said he wasn't marketable. and a young Latina chemist who'd been told she'd never fit the brand aesthetic. They didn't need second chances. They needed the first ones. "You're not here to make it diverse," Henrietta told them. "You're here to make it true." And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a rebrand. This was a reckoning dressed in cashmere. And tomorrow, the name on the building wouldn't be Lucent Luxe anymore. It would be something entirely new. Something built on inclusion, not illusion. Something that even Madison Avenue couldn't ignore. At 6 a.m. the next morning, the first light of day hit Fifth Avenue, and it didn't find Lucent Luxe. The name was gone, scraped off the glass doors, deleted from social media, buried in the memory hole where all failed legacies go to rot. In its place, gilded in warm matte gold above the entrance, Mayfield, all caps, no frills, no apology, just a name, a history, a warning. Henrietta stood across the street, sipping her tea from a to-go cup Tobias had handed her. She wore sneakers this time, comfortable ones, because starting a revolution takes stamina. "You sure you want to do the ribbon cutting?" Tobias asked. Henrietta didn't even blink. "Boy, I've waited 60 years to cut a ribbon someone tried to tie around my throat." Across the street, staff were lining up for the soft opening. Not hired for looks, hired for heart, for skill, for the kind of customer service that doesn't come from scripts, but from being treated like a human being enough times to know how to return the favor. The floor manager? A black woman in her 60s. Formerly a Macy's department head who'd been retired early after 30 years. Code for pushed out before her pension matured. The new greeter? A non-binary teen who'd never been given a job interview before because of the way they dressed. Behind the counter stood Bethany, now in a slate blazer and flats, coaching new hires, teaching them the one sentence Henrietta made everyone memorize. "We don't sell status here. We serve people." Inside, the design had changed too. Gone with glass vaults, the silent pressure, the atmosphere of suspicion dressed as elegance. Now, open shelves, natural wood, real plants. Prices clearly labeled. Sampling encouraged. Staff trained in listening, not profiling. At exactly 9 a.m., Henrietta crossed the street. No fanfare, no speech, just a pair of gold-handled scissors in her hand and a quiet army behind her. She cut the ribbon. The crowd outside erupted. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. But she didn't stop to pose. She stepped inside her store. And the first customer? An older black man in a faded bomber jacket stepped cautiously through the doors, looking around like he wasn't sure if he belonged. Henrietta smiled at him. "You looking for skincare or peace of mind?" He chuckled. "Bit of both, I guess." "Then you've come to the right place." At that moment, Mayfield wasn't just a store. It was a restoration. Outside, Marla Vaughn Kemp walked by with her scarf pulled up to hide her face. She paused when she saw the new sign. She didn't dare go in, just stood there, invisible for once in her life. Inside, Henrietta noticed her, but didn't acknowledge her. Because when you're busy building something righteous, you don't waste time glaring at ruins. Especially when you used to be the one they tried to bury, and now your name's on the door. The buzz around Mayfield was immediate and deafening. By noon, the boutique had trended on Twitter, headlined on CNN, and landed a surprise feature on Good Morning America, where a host choked up reading the phrase, "Elderly black woman reclaims store that humiliated her." Across the city, luxury competitors were scrambling. PR firms fired off memos like flares in a storm. One brand tried tweeting, "We stand for inclusion." They got ratioed in under 9 minutes. Back at Mayfield, Henrietta sat in a newly upholstered armchair near the fragrance section. It smelled like fresh cedarwood and overdue accountability. She wasn't there to manage. She was there to witness. Because this wasn't just a comeback. It was a course correction. The line outside stretched past 2 blocks. But no one minded. Customers brought folding chairs. Some brought stories. A woman in her 40s leaned in and whispered, "They followed me last time I came in here. Thought I was stealing. I was just comparing moisturizers." A trans man stepped forward. "They told me they didn't carry anything for my skin tone." Like I was confusing the lighting. Henrietta nodded as she listened. She didn't speak much that day. She didn't have to. Every square inch of that store already spoke for her. Tobias, meanwhile, was upstairs reviewing expansion proposals. The demand was overwhelming. Investors wanted in. Brands begged for shelf space. But he was clear, if it doesn't align with the mission, it doesn't get in the building. And the mission wasn't diversity. It was dignity. A new hire, Jerome, a young black man with a degree in chemistry and 3 years of retail rejection, walked up to Henrietta holding a sleek white box. "Mrs. Mayfield," he said, smiling shyly, "this is the serum you were asking about yesterday. The platinum renewal one." Henrietta raised a brow. "The one I wasn't allowed to touch without showing my W-2? He chuckled. "That's the one. Except now it's under your house brand. Reformulated. Cleaner ingredients. And it's half the price." She took the box. "Read the label." One word printed across it in deep indigo. "Revive." That was Tobias's idea. Because revenge expires. But revival? That's legacy. At the register, customers weren't just buying creams. They were buying into the message. One woman wiped tears after a purchase. "I've never felt welcome in a place this nice," she said. Henrietta simply patted her hand and replied, "Well, now you are, sugar. Welcome to the new luxury." Outside, a reporter shouted, "Mrs. Mayfield, do you think this is just a trend?" Henrietta turned slowly, cane in hand, had slightly tilted, and said, "Trends fade. But truth? Truth shows up at 76 years old in flats and a cardigan, and leaves with the deed to the building." That clip would later break 1 million views in under 12 hours. Some called it the start of a retail revolution. Henrietta just called it Tuesday. By week's end, Mayfield had done what no luxury brand had dared. It made everyone feel like they belonged, and charged full price while doing it. But Henrietta wasn't celebrating with champagne. She was standing in a community center in the Bronx, handing out free starter skincare kits to teenage girls who'd never been inside a boutique without a security guard trailing them like a shadow. "I don't care what your zip code says," she told them. "You deserve to feel beautiful without asking permission." Beside her, Bethany was organizing sign-up sheets for the Legacy Mentorship Program, a brainchild of Henrietta and Tobias that matched underserved youth with professionals in product design, chemistry, and retail management. It wasn't about charity. It was about access. You don't need to rescue people when you never pushed them off the cliff in the first place. Back at the Fifth Avenue flagship, Mayfield's sales had surpassed Lucent Luxe's monthly numbers in 5 days. Not just because of buzz, because people finally felt seen without being surveilled. But not everyone was celebrating. In a strip mall in Queens, under fluorescent lights, and beside a sale bin labeled "Everything $9.99, stood Marla Vaughn Kemp, formerly queen of curated disdain, now assistant manager at a discount beauty chain called Blush Bucket. She wore a red apron. Her heels were gone. So was her clipboard. A customer asked her if they carried the Revive serum. Marla's smile twitched. "No," she said through her teeth. "That's a Mayfield product." The customer lit up. "Oh, I love that store. Did you see that older woman who owns it now? Icon." Marla nodded mechanically, then turned around and nearly choked on her own resentment. Behind her, taped to the staff bulletin board, was a printout of Forbes' newest headline. Henrietta Mayfield named most influential woman in beauty. Luxury without judgment is the future. Back at Mayfield HQ, Tobias was reviewing expansion into Chicago, Atlanta, and London. "You sure about this pace?" his COO asked. Tobias grinned. "Mom's 76. We move slow. She'll beat us there." But Henrietta wasn't interested in London just yet. She was at the back of the Fifth Avenue store, standing in front of a wall newly installed with framed portraits. Not of models, but of people who had been discriminated against in the original Lucent Luxe. Underneath each photo, a small plaque. The name, the date, the injustice. And beside them, a small glass case held Henrietta's straw hat, the one she wore the day she got kicked out. Customers would pause there longer than anywhere else in the store. One little girl tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, is that a superhero hat?" Her mother smiled. "Something like that." And upstairs, looking out over the storefront windows, Henrietta whispered to herself, "They try to make me invisible, so I made sure they'd never forget what they saw." 6 months later, The Mayfield logo wasn't just on storefronts. It was on billboards, in subways, on magazine covers, and, much to the horror of old-school execs, on Wall Street tickers. MYF, the first black-owned, woman-led luxury retail chain to go public, had opened at $43.75 a share. Within hours, it surged 40%. Analysts called it a miracle. Henrietta called it overdue. At the stock exchange opening bell, she wore the same cream coat she'd walked back into Lucent Lux with. But this time, she added a pair of pearl earrings. Real ones. Thought I'd wear something that rattles a little when I move, she told reporters. Just so they know I'm coming. In the crowd, Bethany, now head of training and culture. Jerome, leading product development with a lab of chemists that looked like the United Nations. And Judge Jeanette Coleman, smiling wide in a tailored black blazer, watching from the wings like a proud godmother at a coronation. When Henrietta struck the bell, the room erupted, not in polite applause, but in cheers. Cheers for the woman they tried to dismiss, for the name they tried to erase, for the proof that dignity, when defended, doesn't just return, it reigns. Later that night, back at the flagship store, Henrietta walked through the showroom after closing. The staff had gone home. The lights dimmed low. A cleaning crew moved quietly in the background. She passed by the wall of framed portraits, the stories of the ignored, the followed, the judged, and paused in front of the last one. It wasn't a photograph. It was a mirror, framed in gold, hung low, no sign, no plaqué, just a mirror. Because the most powerful message Mayfield offered was this: see yourself. You belong. Henrietta adjusted her scarf in the glass and whispered, no more asking for space. We're the space now. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. A text from Tobias. LVMH just called. They want a meeting. She smirked. Tell Mama's busy. Try the second quarter. She stepped out into the quiet street, cane tapping against stone, the city lights glinting off the sign that bore her name. A name they tried to shame. A name she turned into a standard. A name that would outlive them all. Because in the end, Henrietta Mayfield didn't just change a store. She changed what luxury meant. And no one would ever dare question her place in it again. What if luxury wasn't about status, but about respect? What if a name etched in gold wasn't earned through privilege, but through patience, principle, and the kind of quiet strength that doesn't just endure injustice? Does it rewrite the rules around it? Henrietta Mayfield didn't demand a seat at their table. She bought the building, threw out the table, and invited everyone in. This isn't just a story about cosmetics. It's about what happens when the world finally sees the people it spent generations trying to ignore. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Story Precious, because someone out there is still waiting to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, you're the one who'll help them shine.